pretty sure from an economic perspective, as you gained more knowledge, you've been exposed to more things, and it has broadened your palette of understanding economics.
Hmm.
I think that's the same thing that we can do, and I think that those who have been in these positions have a responsibility for. I can only talk from the perspective of a high school football coach who've experienced these things with players, or these things with families, these things with these things. That's my horizon. Well, a person who's been in the CEO room, who's had the conversations about contracts and things like that, those are the people that should be sharing the information downward to create an ecosystem, something similar to what you're doing with the Black Business School, creating an ecosystem of sharing information. And through that, then you're exposing me to a different palette. What if I only know as an athlete that I can be a quarterback? Then I get into a system that exposes me to a different way of thinking. And when I go to college, instead of me just worried and focused on playing football, I also am building an alumni network. I'm also rubbing shoulders and shaking hands with individuals outside of the field to help broaden my ecosystem. So that exposes me to more opportunity. And I think that's where some of the conversation can talk about when we talk about connection and community.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think that exposure shifted my thinking. I mean, even after I had done all my doctoral work, I still wasn't seeing things the way I see things now. That was over 20 years ago. And in 25, 30 years ago, I knew a lot about finance, but now, you just have a whole different point of view. So here's what's interesting to me, man, and this is something I wish we could really address in the culture is I think sometimes we're trained to listen to the wrong people. I think that we have a lot of charismatic black leaders who just, who are guiding people in the wrong direction, feeding them nonsense. I think that if you consider the fact that it doesn't matter, and a lot of times we want to put it all off on white folks and say, well, they keep information from us or they don't educate us well enough, things like that. But it's like, no, if you've got people that can see things in a different way and you're choosing to ignore that so you can go listen to a rapper, that's kind of on you to some extent. It doesn't mean that you weren't influenced though to believe that rappers possess all the wisdom in the black community. But when I'm looking for black leaders, I'm not looking at whatever Negro they put on TV. I'm looking for the husbands and fathers and mothers and sisters in the community that really know what's going on. I'm talking to guys like yourself who are talking to the kids and the parents and see what the community needs because you're doing the work, right? You're interacting with people and you're improving their lives and you really matter in terms of where the community is going. And I think that we get so many little distractions that get thrown out there because there's nothing about anything that I'm saying that's really changed all that much. I've been saying this stuff publicly since the '90s, actually, since early 2000s, man. And there's some people who just say, "Oh, well, he's a professor, so I'm not going to listen to him because I can't relate to him because only white people are supposed to be professors anyway. So he probably don't know what he's talking about." So I think that you're right though. Exposure does matter, and here's the other thing that's interesting too. When you talk about us really gaining the power that we need to have to shape our own destiny, it doesn't really take everybody to do it. Like millions of us don't have to all be on the same page. It just really takes people that have the capacity to lead and the power and influence to gain a little bit of courage. Strap some testicles onto your body and stop being so damn scared all the time, and really understand what this world is. I think the world is a competition. I think that the reason we lose the competition is because we don't even know we in the damn game. We don't even know there's a competition. We on the football field trying to make friends instead of taking hits and laying hits on other people, and so I think that for black people, our quest to be accepted and to be liked and to be friends with everybody, I think that really hurts us because I don't think they're trying to be our friend. I think they're basically like, look, you can be my slave if you want to come and be my bitch. I'm gonna let you do that. But the minute you start bucking up on me and acting like you don't know your place, I'm gonna hurt you. Right, and because I've already got it in your head, and you've already committed to this white supremacy idea. Because like, think about it, from the time we're little, we're not educated by our own people. We get educated by other people's systems and all that. So I think that that creates a fear, right? So when you look at, for example, you go look at an athlete that's worth $1 billion, and he's got billionaire friends that are making lots of money. They showing up to the club and flexing and throwing money in the air and stuff like that. But you get them together and say, how do we step in and really compete with the world and develop industries that are going to really allow our people to prosper? I think they kind of shrivel up out of fear because maybe that wasn't their education, that wasn't their exposure. And I get that, right? But the question is, when do we change that, right? Like, I personally think that every football coach in the country, not to tell anybody what to do. I was a track coach. I didn't coach football. I coached track. I think every coach that is responsible for young black people should incorporate economic education into what they do on the field and help them learn from. There's some great models out here. Michael Jordan is an excellent model of how you can be an amazing athlete on the field, take that same skill set, translate that to things like business and ownership, and do extremely well, and learn those lessons so that we understand that, look, just because you weren't that 1% or 0.1% that made it to the NFL, the NBA, yeah, you're part of the 99.9% that didn't make it, but your role is just as important as the guy or the woman that's actually on the court or on the field. Because maybe when they get out and they dunk the basketballs and score the points, you can pull together a group and you become the owners of a team that then allows you, like, so that you're buddies with LeBron. He's got 10 or 15 friends like Rich Paul and others who've elevated their careers in an extraordinary way because of LeBron's ability to play basketball. The next step to that would be, okay, now we're forming our own league, and LeBron is one of the athletes that's going to draw attention to this league, and we're going to do the back end infrastructure so everybody can get rich, right? Because like you said, and maybe you agree with me, I'd like to know what you think about this. I really think that we've got 95% of what they need in order for a sports league to be successful. What do you think?
I think to your point, the big three is an example of what you're talking about, in my
Mm,
opinion. Ice
yeah.
Cube, not excuse me, uh, gosh, I lost his name. Is Ice Cube?
Yeah, Ice Cube.
Um, there we go. Ice Cube has the Big Three league that he started, I think maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yep.
And now it's starting to produce, and you're starting to see commercials, and you're starting to see all the marketing piece behind it. Now, I don't know enough of it, the back infrastructure, to say who's all involved or who all is, but I do know that there was buy-in from older NBA players who
Hmm.
are not no longer in the NBA, but they still have a market for their talent. I do know that there was some buy-in from individuals that were saying, like stadiums, that said, "Hey, we'll host the games and things of that sort." So all of those things, I think, is an example of what you're referring to as leveraging the know-how. It's
Hmm.
leveraging the know-how. Knowledge is power when it's applied. Uh,
Hmm.
is not when knowledge sitting in your head and sitting in a book isn't powerful when you apply it. So, like you said, as a person who deals in financing, you would want to see more educational connections to business and football from coaches. I'm in the same boat that I want to see it seen from teaching athletes that they're comprehensive people and not just products.
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing that I want to see, is helping them see that you are a part of this larger scheme that is happening, and you need to know what it is that you're playing, the role that you're playing. And to your point, you've dedicated over, what I would say, 40 years of your life to understanding financing,
Hmm.
I'll assume. So one would say that you've been radical about financing. This is something you beat this drum on for 40 years. And so how has that looked different? What does the drumbeat look different like from year 1 to year 40, from year 5 to year 10 to year 15? What were some of the things that you pivoted from? How were you able to use your experiences of working in financing to then help talk to different pockets and different people? I think that same thing can be applied when you're talking about comprehensive people in sports. And
Hmm.
that we are whole human beings, athletes, parents, fathers, mothers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You mentioned Michael Jordan being a person that transitioned well from athletics. I think there are a number of people that have done that. I also
Hmm.
say that this generation is promising because there have been some influencers that have used sports to elevate their platform to a point where they are now using skill sets that are generating income that is around sports. One of them is called an influencer called Acho Speed. My son is 11
Yeah.
years old and he watches this dude a lot. I can't remember another gentleman's name that he watches, but it's a few of them that like they have flag tournaments or they'll have one-on-one competitions, and then they'll generate 5 billion views, and they somehow leverage that for income, sponsorships, things of that sort. All of that to say, I like the idea of seeing how do we create, because that's something that we've been able to do in every stage of our existence is create. And it may have looked slower in some stages or not, but the Black Business School is a perfect example of creating in your sphere.
I
So
love that.
these athletes learn enough to create in their sphere because now they have the mindset of I'm not just an athlete. I'm using my athletic ability in this way, but how can I then still take that and what I call maybe leverage it to understand this game? And if I understand this game, I can play it this way. One of the gentlemen who works with investments, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to get his information wrong, but I remember reading a story and saying how he was a dope boy. And he took the same principles of learning a dope game and put it into investing. And that's where I'm trying to me, as I am learning my platform, as I'm learning how to get my message out there, is how do I encourage younger athletes and older athletes to link those athletes together and the people around athleticism and start having the conversation that you're having, Dr. Boyce, about economic education in athletics, about mental health in athletics, about all of the things that incorporate it. And instead of saying, you tell us, we tell each other.
hmm Well, I love that, man. I love that a lot. And I think my wife went AWOL, so I don't know if she's coming back. But I'm gonna say this, man, and then I'll let you get the last word, and you can tell everybody where they can follow you. I agree with you 100%. I just kind of think the simple connection I would encourage everybody to make into if you want to have a takeaway that you want to share with your family, friends, stuff like that, or your kids. Help them understand that skill sets are universal. That's the biggest thing. If you got a hammer, that doesn't mean you can only hit one nail. It's better if you have a hammer, you shouldn't just necessarily focus on one nail to hit and then they take that nail away and you think your hammer is worthless. No, that hammer has value, even if it's not hitting the nail that you were hitting before. If you're a builder, then that hammer will always have value. So, what I would say to everybody in here is if you look at how much we get from sports, like how many of y'all in here, give me a yes in the chat if you played sports or if you love sports or have been involved in sports. Everybody put a yes in the chat. Every athlete, former athlete, athlete in your mind, like everybody, if you got a kid that's an athlete, put the yes in the chat. I ask you that because I want you to really tune in on what's universal about sports and what it does for you. Sports teaches you all the things you need to be successful in life. Sports teaches you how to plan ahead, how to have a strategy, teaches you how to work hard for your goals, teaches you consistency, teaches you discipline, right? Teamwork, all these things you learn from sports. And I guarantee you that if you are committed to the sport you play when you're young, then you can take that same skill set. You can apply it to becoming a medical doctor, an attorney. You can apply it to becoming a business owner. There's a billion things you can do with that ability. And it's not just what you do with your body; it's what you do with your mind. And this is one of the reasons why we have to educate our own kids, is so they don't get boxed in. Because when people get boxed in, they end up feeling like they don't have any options. It doesn't matter if you actually do or not. What matters is if somebody's convinced you that you have no options. Like a bad relationship. You ever had a bad relationship, Jonathan, where where that girl made you somehow think that she's the only girl that's ever gonna want you. I know it's hard to admit, but I've gone through that.
Hey man, I'm not gonna admit that, man. No.
Hey, I have, man. I have. And baby, baby, please, and all that, and then she dumps you, and then you find out that there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of fish in the sea that you never saw because you were focused on the wrong fish. So a lot of our young men, I think, they focus on the wrong fish. They think basketball's the only thing I got. when really you got a whole lot more than basketball. You were great at that. You can be great at a lot of things because it takes, success and excellence is kind of universal, and making sure you understand that is part of your self esteem and realizing that you can't let somebody else ever take away your identity. No, never let anybody else have that right to take your identity away from you. That is your decision. So I'm gonna let you get the last word, Jonathan. Tell, maybe you can tell people where they can find you, stuff like that.
Yeah. So first off, I want to say thank you for just making a time for this conversation. I agree with several points that you made in the sense of understanding that skill sets are universal, and that's something that if you can understand as a football player, I use that as an example. If you can understand how timing works, where angles work, if you can understand that I have to kick the ball 40 yards, or you can start then having conversations about math. You can start having conversations about spatial awareness. You can start having conversations about how strategy works with people. Like one of the things I love doing for football players that I get an intimate relationship with as it relates to like coaching and things like that is teaching them a game of chess and how the game of chess correlates with the pieces on a field moving toward an expected end. I'll say it that way. And so being able to correlate different analogies for football players, for athletes, for volleyball players, and letting them know that this is how your sport can translate. This is how the skill sets that you develop in this sport can translate. I think is a powerful thing. As it relates to my work specifically, we do that for athletes starting as early as 7th grade. We, as best as we can, that's the primary focus area is 7th through 12th grade. We work with athletes in the state of Texas, and we've done some things outside of the primary in the state of Texas. We work with athletes in helping them understand the foundational knowledge of mental health. What is emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making? What is executive functioning? What is that? What does that even mean? How do I even define what are the emotions that I'm experiencing? And how does that correlate to possibly past experiences like trauma? How does that correlate to things like attachment theory or emotional dysregulation, or in all of these different terms? We start giving them a voice and vocabulary to set the foundation of, okay, now that we're building this, when we get to this point, for example, we just had an athlete we worked with that went to a school in college and then ended up having to transfer to another school. And then throughout that transition, he and I talked about what it means to start something new. What is it? What are the feelings associated? What are the thoughts behind it? So all of those things are foundational pieces that are important to life, because just like you, Dr. Watkins, has said, you've had various transitions in life yourself. You've had very different seasons of life. So how do we keep athletes from being stuck in this mindset that I am only an athlete, I can only do this, and move them to a broader understanding of themselves so that they can show up fully comprehensive as a person? Where if I'm ever faced with a situation, going back to that movie, if I'm ever faced with a moral situation where I say, I don't want to do this, I'm okay walking away from the I don't want to do, because I don't want to compromise who I am outside of football, because football is not my identity. It's something I do. I think that's where we start having this conversation of separating the two. People can find me if they're interested in working, following our work. Facebook is at Jonathan Gaffney. I share my information with Dr. Alicia, so she can get that information out. On Instagram is at Coach the Mental, and then on Twitter is at Coach Mental Health. So you can find me on any of those outlets. You can email me, spelling my first name, last name at gmail.com. Really, man, I'm really about just doing the work on the ground and really doing the best that I can to get this message out.
All right, all right. So everybody, take a look on that screen at how he spells his name. It's spelled a little different from the typical Jonathan. I bet a lot of people misspell your name every day, huh?
Oh man, blame my parents. I blame my parents.
Yeah, I love that though. Yeah, I bet you've never met another person whose name spelled the same way as yours, have you? Yeah, that's really unique. So Jonathan, for anybody that's listening, it's spelled John, just like John, Athane, almost like methane at the end, A-N-E. So Jonathan Gaffney, Gaffney. That's JohnAthane, and his email is jonathan.gaffney, Gaffney, at gmail.com. All right, so I see some Bernita's asking me about the financial program for student athletes here in Philly. I think that's great. And really, I think that at some point, my goal, my hope, my dream is that things like financial success, business success, life success programs like what Mr. Gaffney's running, that this is not the exception. This has to be the rule. Think about this. There's nothing harder in America right now, anyway, that I can see than growing up as a black man or black woman in this country. You got a lot of landmines, a lot of tough situations, a lot of crazy scenarios you got to navigate. So when he talked about executive functioning, you have to function like an executive, or they'll have you out here functioning like a prison inmate. And we don't want that. That's not who our kids are supposed to be. They're supposed to be in better situations. So that this emotional intelligence, absolutely essential. Executive functioning, absolutely essential. Good life decisions, absolutely essential. Being able to process your emotions properly in a healthy way, essential. Understanding business and investing, essential. Give me a yes if you agree. Let me know if you agree. I want to make sure we walk away with that by having more than just a good conversation. I want us to have a transformative moment where we all go home and understand our role in this process. We're teammates. Let's go make sure the team wins, and let's make sure the babies get what they need. So I want to say thank you, Mr. Gaffney, for everything you do, man. I think everything starts with love, and thank you everybody who joined us. We love you. We appreciate you. And tomorrow morning we get started again in class, 10 a.m. We do this 7 days a week. So if you want to join class with us to study our finances, you can text the word morning to the phone number 87948. So text morning to 87948. And tomorrow at noon, Dr. Alicia is going to do a financial therapy session in our Stock Market Investors Club. And she's going to go through financial healing that you want to consider if you want to be a good investor. So your trauma does not block you from your success. You can hurdle the trauma and get right to the money, get right to the power, get right to all the things that God had in store for you. So God bless you, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you again, Mr. Gaffney. It's great to see you, brother. All right, and I'll see you all soon. Take care now. Peace. Thank you, brother.